Baseball Show presented by BetMGM on Wednesday, September 13th. Jack McMullen, Arm Layton walking through David Stearns, appointed the new president of baseball operations for the New York Mets. What does that mean for Billy Epler? I don't know. What does that mean for the Mets? They got a lot better in the front office. Also, Pete Crow-Armstrong debuts as a pinch runner. First big league start last night in Colorado. Matt Olson, the first to 50 in Major League Baseball. Kyle Wright came back from a shoulder thing and didn't look great. So we got to talk about that. And then the biggest headlines around minor league baseball. But before all that, quote of the NFL season dropped on Tuesday morning from Jets head coach Robert Saleh. Quote, "This is Zach Wilson's team." I saw that and I let out an audible. That sucks.
Yeah, that does suck. I feel for Jets fans out there. They got the dub though. So that was a chaotic Monday night.
Imagine saying that after like week one of Aaron Rodgers as your new quarterback. Like, this guy is future Hall of Famer immediately, one of the all-time greats. And the Tuesday after Monday Night Football of week one, your head coach is saying this is Zach Wilson's team.
Hard Knocks curse is real.
I can't script that. That was so funny. It was like a gut punch. I know that we have done this, the MLB comp for Zach Wilson, and your answer was Jared Kelenic.
Yeah.
Kelenic is back. We never really talked about that.
Well, here's Zach Wilson's arc. Here's his chance to catch up to the Kelenic. But yeah, that is actually an important point. Kelenic was doing great in AAA, and might be some needed reinforcements here coming for the Mariners offensively.
They've got a 30-30 season from Julio Rodriguez. They optioned Cade Marlowe, which is interesting. Marlowe was on the 40 by the I guess September call-up deadline, or by September 1. So I think Marlowe is like the perfect pinch hitter or pinch runner / defensive replacement. Kelenic for Marlowe is interesting, but if they can get Kelenic somewhat back to form and J-Rod is starting to hit his stride again, I feel really good about Seattle, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. This team it's very hot and cold with them. It seems like, where they're unstoppable and then they're very stoppable. So it's really hard. Every time I want to be like, oh, they're not going to look back now. They have a 2 or 3 game stretch where it's rough, and then they get hot again and they go back and forth. But I think that the big part of what's making me feel good about this team is just seeing what Cal Rowley's doing as well. And just being this guy quietly 4-win season, and it's 4 and change. By the time the season's over, it'll probably be a 4.5 win season. You're getting that from your catcher, and what is his second full season, really? Like, that's really impressive stuff. And I think that with the slow start that Rowley had and what he's been able to do since, that really makes me feel comfortable moving forward, that this guy is going to be just almost a fringe all-star catcher every single year, or at least a well above average catcher every single year moving forward. And I think he's starting to prove himself as an extension candidate for the Mariners, who this would be the great time to do it.
I think so. What more do you want from a young catcher? And I know you could say, oh, well, I want him to not hit 220. He's always going to be a low batting average, but high OPS guy. Like, there are guys whose games are tailored to OPS. And Max Muncy is the best example of that in LA. You're going to see an example of that in Edouard Julien in Minnesota, but Cal Raleigh's that guy, where Schwarber too. Schwarber's the best example of that, because he's going to walk a ton and he's going to slug. Raleigh is a poor man's Schwarber, but he's a great defensive catcher.
Yeah, I was like, catcher.
Defensive catcher.
I'll take that at catcher versus no position, right? Like, so that's the amazing part about it. He's a great defensive catcher, as you mentioned, and his numbers now from last year are almost identical. So you imagine that maybe next year he doesn't have as dramatically of a slow start. He could potentially have a 35 home run season. Right now, it's 27 home runs last year in 119 games, 28 home runs this year in 128 games, 4.1 F4 last year, 4.3 F4 this year. He's cut the strikeout rate a little bit. He's upped the walk rate. Like, I think this guy's going to keep getting better. This is a building block for the Mariners. And again, we're talking about how, like, Ohtani, that could be a landing spot for them. I'm just looking at free agents in general with the way JP Crawford's playing. Like, they have a lot of positions kind of settled up. I do wonder if they're going to try to be big time players in free agency and try to get one of the better bats out there.
Yeah. Did you see the pivot from the Marine Layer pod guys when Shohei was scratched? Instead of come to Seattle for the chant when Shohei was up, it's we want Shohei when Mike Moustakas was hitting. Loved
That
it.
was an unfortunate pivot, but I'm glad they still did something.
Yeah,
I know the Marine Layer guys are trying to recruit Shohei already. I love it.
and they're doing it on Tuesday and doing it on Wednesday too. Yeah, man. But I think Cal Raleigh, if you were to, and we're going to do it in the offseason, if you're looking at the top 10 catchers in the game, he's firmly within the top 10 at this point because of what he offers. And by WAR, do you have it in front of you? Like, where does that 4.2 or 4.3, pardon, stack up among catchers?
So he's 4 point, or sorry, I don't know why it just gave me it gave me like a weird span of time here, but I'm gonna guess it is among the best in baseball. Who's gonna be ahead of him? Sean Murphy. You're gonna have JT Realmuto this year, not so much. Adley probably ahead of him, but it's not working for me on the computer right now. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but I would guess that it's top 3 or 4.
I've got it. Adley Rutschman somehow by WAR is a 3.8 WAR. Will Smith 3.8. Cal Raleigh 4.3 is second among all qualified catchers, only behind William Contreras of the Milwaukee Brewers, who's a 4.4 WAR guy.
Well, that kind of will segue us. I don't know if Stearns gets credit for that move, right? Was usually technically like an advisor there. I don't know if he was involved when they made that move, but that's looking like an unbelievable trade. All we were hearing about was how Contreras is all bat, no glove, and that's kind of how it looked. And all of a sudden now he's grading out as a good defender.
Yeah,
which is really wild.
A really good defender by defensive value. On Fangraphs, Cal Raleigh is the best qualified defender in baseball. Somehow Adley is like not at the level of Cal Raleigh and William Contreras, but William Contreras is 2 in that measurement. And then by WRC Plus, you've got Wilson Contreras at 1 with a 125, but he's got a 2.2 WAR. Then you got William Contreras at 121, Will Smith at 121, Adley at 121, and Raleigh right behind at 119. Only other guy over 100 is JT Realmuto at 103. So this guy is a top 5 offensive catcher among qualified catchers in baseball. No, Jonah Heim is not qualified. And by WAR, he's the second most valuable catcher in Major League Baseball this year. But yeah, I think it's Matt Arnold's move that brought William Contreras to Milwaukee. But I will tell you, Matt Arnold is a disciple of the new president of baseball operations in Queens. David Stearns just took the president of baseball ops job in New York. Before we get into what that means for Billy Epler, I thought Jeff Passan made a great point. Passan, and I'm paraphrasing here, said, Stearns, who is the architect of several division-winning Brewers teams, goes from, financial constraints to a seemingly like limitless pool of money from Steve Cohen. And Passan said that this is probably the biggest front office move since Andrew Friedman left Tampa to go lead the Dodgers in 2014. And I may agree. I'm not sure. The way we kind of look at Friedman, the way that we've talked about Friedman, I know, is financially, he went from swimming in a kiddie pool to the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And that's what David Stearns is doing right now. He went from swimming in a kiddie pool and being successful and extending Freddie Peralta on the craziest, most team-friendly deal you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much he had to do with this. He's still an advisor, but like winning an arbitration case against Corbin Burns. Are you kidding me? To having Steve Cohen as your owner, who is willing to pay more in luxury tax penalties than he is actually in payroll, and who can buy an $140 million statue that's 6 feet tall. Man, he grew up a Mets fan. He's young. He knows what he's doing. This guy's kind of on the Theo Epstein, Andrew Friedman track right now, and the Mets got the right guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of those things that we've been just hearing about. And it seemed like almost just more of a formality thing before it would really end up being locked in. It just seemed like it was weird how like public and open this whole process was in terms of just everybody knew that they were going to find a way to make it happen. And I wonder how much. You got a 5-year deal, right? Like, I wonder how much money Stearns is getting. Like, it's got to be a nice payday. But I think you hit the nail on the head. This isn't a guy that strikes me, and I don't know him personally, obviously, but doesn't strike me as somebody that's just going to abandon what got him here now that the checkbook's open, right? It's going to be, hey, what are some of the things that I really wanted in Milwaukee that we couldn't do, whether it's infrastructure in terms of the farm system and development, because the Brewers have done great in the draft as well. And they've done just fine in development over the last few years. And you look at a lot of the pieces that they have at the big league level right now that are contributing, those are recent Brewers draft picks, whether you look at Sal Frelick or Joey Weimer, and we can go on, and some of the trades that they made to go get a Willy Adames. And there's been a lot of nice moves that they've made there. And I imagine now the thing that separates the Dodgers is the amount of money and resources that they invest into their prospects, and they invest into the minor leagues, and they want those prospects to feel like big leaguers. That's why you look at the affiliates of Dodgers, they have that LA logo on, patched onto their jersey so that they can feel like part of the Dodgers. I think that that's going to be something that we see with Stearns here with the Mets, which is, I think, Stearns obviously has his own philosophy, but I do think that there's going to be some similarities here to the Dodgers, where it's going to be inspired by somebody who worked within the margins, previously, but also now has this endless capital to be able to build an infrastructure that just churns out talent. We'll see, because everyone's always going to say it's the Mets and they're going to Met, and I get that, but it's a different owner that tried it with Billy. I don't know why Billy Epler was the guy. Like we look at the history of Billy Epler. There's a million reasons to believe that it wasn't going to work with him. To me, this is the last, I think the last time that we're going to say a new era for the Mets, because it feels like we're saying that every year. But I do feel like this is going to be a really, really good hire. I don't think that's, mind blowing. I think everybody agrees with that. And this is probably going to be the thing that finally turns the tides in Queens. I really do believe that.
Yeah, so a couple of moves that I want to highlight from Stearns in his Brewers tenure. Number one is obviously Christian Yelich. Yelich might be aside from that Glasnow, Boz, Meadows deal for Chris Archer, like this might be the craziest. And Tatis,
yeah.
but Tatis
let me tell you the prospect return real quick. It was Lewis Brinson, Monte Harrison, Jordan Yamamoto, Isan Diaz, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, great package. Monte Harrison is back with the Brewers in AAA. Lewis Brinson's in Japan. Isan Diaz is on in his fourth org sense and was with the Giants. I don't even know who he's with now in AAA. And Jordan Yamamoto retired. So, that was a great trade by Stearns.
Yeah, so he nailed that one. By the way, Christian Yelich had an MVP. Looked like he was going to win 2 straight before it was a fractured kneecap.
Yep,
fractured kneecap in 2019. The other one, December of 2015, they go and grab a 19-year-old right-hander named Freddie Peralta in a deal. The return to Seattle was Adam Lind for Freddie Peralta, Carlos Herrera, and Daniel Masaki. Doesn't matter that you don't know who the other two are. Freddie Peralta made $1.2 million in 2021. He signed an extension after 20. He made 1.2 in 21. He made 2.5 in 2022. This year, he's making 3.7. Next year, he makes 5.7. Then a club option for 8 in 2025 and a club option for 8 in 2026. He hits free agency at 31 years old.
Yeah.
That, like Acuna, best deal in baseball, Albies, second best deal in baseball. This Freddie Peralta deal might be the third best deal in baseball.
It's up there. It's definitely up there. And that was the thing, is it's Braves-esque, right? Where you identify the talent, you acquire him as a minor leaguer. So it's a little different there, but then see that guy, don't get deterred too much by the injury issues and some of the inconsistency, and extend him. And I think use that almost in your favor to be able to kind of knock the price down a little bit. That was really impressive. And then I know you're going to get to the Willy Adames trade. And I know Adames has struggled this year. And it's funny, it feels like Adames has been bad. And if you look at the slash line, 215, 299, 413, it's not great. But he's got 24 home runs. He's defending. He's a 2.5 win player. That's still pretty good. But they've got a ton of production from him since he's come over from Tampa.
So it was Adames and Trevor Richards. And Adames was so he was a Tigers prospect, traded to Tampa, and that guy could not hit at the Trop. He frankly, not only change of scenery, he needed a change of home ballpark. And that's what unlocked him. And he's a 30-homer threat while playing a decent shortstop every single year. It was JP Fireeisen, who is now a Dodger, and Drew Rasmussen. Rasmussen, yes, he's been great for Tampa. but he's also been unavailable this year, and he had his third UCL reconstruction. So I don't know if you want to call him damaged goods because he's got an ERA in the mid twos with Tampa, but this is a great deal for Stearns, man.
Yeah.
He did well. The other thing is like his job that he's done in international free agency and at the top of drafts has been really impressive. And they found Weimer as a diamond in the rough. They found Garrett Mitchell in the first round. They got Sal Frelick in the first round. How about Jefferson Caro signed an IFA? How about Jackson Chorio signed an IFA? I mean, he has kind of been the lead man for this young nucleus of Brewers, and he built this team that's going to win the NL Central again this year. It wasn't really Matt Arnold. Like, who did he bring in this year? No one really.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, you look at the squad from top to bottom, and even like the William Contreras, you could say like that was the move, that was the big one that he brought in. But a couple of the pieces, or at least one of the pieces that contributed to being able to get Contreras was, from a trade that actually people highlighted as maybe one of Stearns' lowlights, was that Josh Hader deal, which, yeah, it wasn't great, but they end up still getting a couple decent pieces. Robert Gasser looks like he's going to be a piece for them in the rotation potentially as soon as next year. And then they flip Asturi Ruiz and part of that deal to get William Contreras. So it all kind of worked out there. But yeah, I mean, how about IDing a Corbin Burns, and like, how about just being able to find somebody like that? And
how about a Devin Williams?
Yeah. Another
one. Hader, who is a failed starter in the Orioles.
Yep.
System.
Yep. I mean, Devin Williams is a failed starter.
Yep.
It's another guy. So, I mean, it's been really amazing to see what they've been able to do and the guys that they've been able to ID. And the Brewers work on, I think the Brewers get more credit than they deserve in terms of ownership, in terms of investment. Like that stadium is falling apart. Yeah. The team is never really spending much. They locked up Yelich on a very friendly contract that now didn't look as friendly because he fell off a cliff. But at the time, I mean, it was an incredibly team-friendly contract, and now it looks good again. And that's with the fluidity of these long-term deals, which is so funny. But you look at what they've done. I mean, it's really hard to argue against it. And you left out. How about? I mean, he's got a lot to still figure out. But Jacob Mizorowski in the second round out of a JUCO is becoming one of the most exciting young pitching prospects in baseball. So they've done a great job of IDing in the draft. Now they're going to have more capital, and they're going to have a lot more resources here. So I'm interested to see how that helps in the development aspect of things. You also didn't even mention, like, we'll be nerding out all day, but Luis Lara is another prospect that I love. That's a top 75 guy top 70 guy for us on the top 100 list that they picked up for cheap in international free agency. So I think they're going to cook. I think David Stearns is going to cook in New York with the resources that he has.
The last question here is, and oh, by the way, I saw what Christian Yelich is day-to-day with lower back soreness.
Oh God.
Like, this just sucks, man. Come on.
Yeah. I hope that doesn't linger into some of the stuff that we saw before.
I hope this guy's lower back just like didn't exist. Like, if he just cut off, I still
just no torso.
Yeah, no torso.
He already is like almost all legs. It's kind of crazy.
Just make him like a lank machine. Make him Mike Wazowski, and we'll get all systems going. Last question regarding the Stearns hire in New York. What's next for Billy Epler? Do you think he's still like the GM of the New York Mets, and Stearns is like, I'm better than you, but I'll still run things by you?
I wonder, because I feel like it's just one of those situations where, where it's like an NFL player that they basically give you the option, like, hey, we're going to either cut you or you can restructure your contract.
Yeah. I
feel like it's going to be one of those situations, maybe not financially, but more so in terms of like role. Hey, you're not going to call all the shots here. You can still be the general manager, and you can be play a key part in this whole operation here, but you're not the shot caller anymore. Because I just feel like if Epler gets fired here, and he might, I don't know what the plan is. Who's hiring this guy, man? He had so much money at his disposal in LA, or Anaheim, I should say, and was terrible. They fumbled the bag atrociously out there, and I think was the precursor to what's just been, a prolonged issue. We could have blamed ownership there, because I think that Artie Moreno is the big issue there. But then you see him go to the Mets, and he has all these resources, and it was kind of the same thing. It's just, let's throw money at big names. It just seems to be the Billy Epler way. You give him a bag, and he's just going to throw it at big names and play it what he thinks is safe, but ends up not being safe at all. It was very similar to, I think, a lot of the moves that we saw him make in Anaheim. So I really feel like if he gets fired, who's hiring that guy? I think he's pretty brutal. I haven't seen many good things that he's done. I think there's been a lot of mistakes across the way. And I think unless his pride is too prominent here, I think he's got to probably swallow it and accept a lesser role. And I wonder if that'll be the case, because I will say, I do like the moves that they've made, like going into this rebuild side of things.
Yeah.
I love what they've been able to do. I mean, Drew Gilbert's been amazing. Luis Angel Acuna is starting to really look solid. I like the prospects that they've been able to acquire. I think they've done well in the recent drafts. So I do wonder if they want to kind of keep that rolling and maybe have him be more of a farm system, oversight guy. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I was looking for precedent to this kind of thing, and I immediately went to the Ben Cherington, Dave Dombrowski thing in Boston. You remember when the Red Sox hired Dombrowski and Cherington immediately resigned? I remember it was like, I was taken aback that they hired him. And I think Boston might have expected those two to work in lockstep, because if they didn't, wouldn't they have just let Cherington go and then immediately bring on Dombrowski? Like, why would you have two guys even occupying that space for 10 seconds? So I think they were probably expecting them to work together. And Cherington was like, no, I didn't sign up for that. He left. He was the VP of baseball ops in Toronto under Anthopoulos, I want to say at that time, or was it Ross Atkins already? I think it was Anthopoulos. I'm not sure. There's just a turnstile. But I do think Billy Epler, if he's willing to swallow his pride and work as a VP, I think that tandem could be really good. James Click being Atkins' number 2 in Toronto, I think is a really good thing right now. But that's obviously Click getting fired or mutual decision to part ways, and then him going elsewhere. Is Click deserving of a lead job? Yes. More so than Chris Getz? Yes. But I think that Stearns being a lead guy again was really important, and I'm glad that he gets to do it in New York. Jed Hoyer is one of the best. Jed and Carter Hawkins, great tandem. They see a guy in Pete Crow-Armstrong, who they acquired from the Mets at the 2021 deadline debut in Colorado as a pinch runner and a center fielder. David Ross said after the game something along the lines of, we're not going to, again, kind of same thing as Canario, we're not going to relinquish ABs from the guys that got us here, but he is starting on Tuesday night. I don't know if PCA is going to play every day.
No.
But if he does, it's going to be electrifying. And even if he doesn't, I think it can still be electrifying.
Yeah, I just hope he plays a couple times a week. I think then you can justify it. If he's not playing if he's getting the Canario treatment, that would be frustrating. Also, one last thing to tie a bow on Epler. He kind of oversaw really like a brand new scouting department for the Yankees. And I think that might be the role for him. Again, kind of farm director, overseeing, the farm system development and doing things like that. And that's where he ultimately was the AGM too. So I think that could be the role for him. Like, he might be more of a Robin than a Batman, and that's okay. But
Robins still get paid really well.
Oh yeah, I'd happily be a Robin. I dream of being a Robin one day. But the thing with PCA is, there's a lot of, we're talking about it on the call up. There's some underlying metric, like red flags, when you look at contact rate, when you look at some other things that I think very analytically driven teams might be a little bit, and the Cubs could be a little bit put off from putting him in this position. But I think the way they looked at it, they're like, hey, this guy instantly, and it was similar to what we talked about with Jordan Lawler. We're not getting much in center field from Tauchman right now, who Tauchman was hitting around 150 over the last 20 games, and he's really been struggling. PCA is immediately one of the best center fielders in baseball, like point blank period. He's incredible, and you'll see that very quickly. He can cover ground with the best of them. He takes some of the most efficient routes, and he has a cannon for an arm. I saw you. I thought you were going to talk, so I was going to give you the floor.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I was going to interject quickly, and it's so low effort. He gets to everything, but it looks effortless. He glides in the outfield, which is.
I have a thread on Twitter, and not trying to I'm telling you, it's worth checking out because of PCA. If you just search at Arm Layton 8 and then Pete Crow-Armstrong with the hyphen, you'll probably find that the thread. It's really fun. I promise. I sorted by lowest probability catches in the minor leagues and pulled some of the most insane. So right there, I mean, those are make or break plays in a playoff race. you make a grab that can save a game. I mean, the Cubs just we're on the other side of it, where Lourdes Gurriel played a ball perfectly off the wall late in the game and fired a strike to get Yan Gomes at second, and that pretty much helped them win the ball game. Like, at this point of the season, that can be a difference maker. So I understand them bringing up PCA from that perspective alone. Also, the pinch running aspect of things, like he runs, he can fly, and he's gotten better and better as a base stealer. So I do have some concerns about him being able to hit immediately. The thing that I do like is he can run into baseballs, and he has really progressed as a power hitter. His fly ball rate is as high as anybody's, and I think that's a good thing, especially in Chicago. Like, he's going to get the ball up in the air. And if he's going to be an inconsistent hitter contact rate wise, which at this point he is, remember, he's a top 15 prospect for a top 10 prospect for us for good reason. I think the hit tool is going to continue to come along, but he could have probably used a little bit more seasoning before he's quote unquote big league ready. Yeah. But his tools are so loud, and he is so good defensively, and he's so fast, and he has the ability to run into baseballs, that I agree that he can help the Cubs win games right now. It might be a small contribution. It might not be the same contribution that you're getting from, an everyday player. It might not even be the same level of contribution you're getting from Christopher Morel. But I do think that he makes the Cubs better in a fourth outfielder role. And that might sound weird for a top 10 prospect in baseball, but it's all hands on deck. And we're seeing the game trend this way with Evan Carter, Jordan Lawler, and now PCA. All of those guys are not expected to be what they're going to be, at their prime or anything close to it right now. But even a fraction of that helps these teams with their current state.
For the sake of, I don't know, it wasn't even for the sake of urgency. For the sake of, I don't know, stereotypical prospect thinking, I think we said Canario is the better option for the Cubs because he's better suited for a fourth outfielder role, and you would prefer PCA to be an everyday guy. Obviously, Pete Crow-Armstrong is going to be the better fourth outfielder than Alexander Canario. Obviously. For sure. Because you're asking for speed and defense. And not only is PCA faster, but he's the best defender in the minor leagues, maybe regardless of position. Now, Canario, like we were thinking, hey, Canario to the future of the Cubs is big, but it's not as big as Pete Crow-Armstrong. So go ahead and start his clock and have PCA's clock delayed.
And also let PCA get at-bats. Right? Exactly. Again, this is a guy that's still working through some whiff issues. His chase rates are extremely high. Like, there's some red flags there. If you do some sorting by guys with his offensive profile, there's not many with a zone contact below 75%, chase rate above 30% that are succeeding in the big leagues. Again, that doesn't mean that PCA is not going to succeed. It means that he needs to make some strides to have consistent success at the big league level. That's why I'm like, okay, if you're bringing him up to play once a week at best, don't do that. You're just wasting time, burning clock, and also not really giving him the opportunity to develop. So Canario is better in that pinch hitting, see you once a week.
Get to do it. Like one plate appearance in 10 days.
No, that's a joke. That's a joke. And I think it was through that span, though, Tauchman continued to struggle.
PCA more urgent.
And then PCA has 4 hits and a grand slam, and they're like, all right, man, like let's just bring this guy up, see if he can ride a hot streak. And Tauchman's not holding up his end of the bargain here. Canario's not playing center field. You'd have to move Bellinger to center, and then now who's playing for? Like, there was a lot of moving parts. It made way more sense to fill that spot with PCA, given the struggles of Tauchman. So I'm interested to see how he plays, but again, even if he doesn't hit, they're going to get some value from him. And he's an awesome dude. We had him on the call up. If you want to hear from him, go check out that interview. It was a few months back. Super cool guy, really funny dude that I think Cubs fans are going to love. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he is a energetic player.
And on Monday's call up, we kind of dove deeper into the chase concerns and the in zone whiff concerns. And we kind of found guys that fell in similar spots on the scatter plot. And like, to douse the fire just a little bit, there are going to be some frustrating plate appearances from PCA in the next month when he does get those plate appearances, and he's going to get those plate appearances in maybe some high leverage moments. And he might piss some Cubs fans off because of being 21 years old and having a somewhat iffy approach.
Yeah. It's going to be, why'd you swing at that? But then there's also going to be a time where he golfs one out of there to right field in a big spot because his heartbeat just doesn't seem to flutter at all. Yeah. And you're going to be like, I love this kid. And that's the thing, though. He plays as hard as anybody I've watched closely in the minor leagues. And is a dude that if they kept him in the minor leagues, he's going to keep playing hard there, no matter where you put it. If you send him back to AAA, we talk about it, how guys kind of sometimes will come back to AAA with their tail between their legs. And that's a guy that I think, he might be upset on inside, but he's going to play his ass off every single game.
You can say tail between your legs. You could also say not give a shit. Like tail between your legs is almost playing like frightened. Like, hey, I'm worried to make a mistake. There are some guys that come down and like don't give a shit in the minor leagues, and that's not PCA. There are points, honestly, where PCA tries too hard.
Yeah, you're almost like chill out. Don't hurt yourself out there. Like he's putting his body on the line, and I'm imagining at the big leagues, like he's gonna sell out for some plays, and for better or for worse too. That there could be some frustration there too. Like it's kind of his chase rates are kind of like a microcosm for his whole game. And you got to take the good with the bad. Like he's going to sell out for a ball, and if he doesn't catch it, might get by him. Like you're going to ride the waves. And the other side of it though is I think it's really good that he's going to get this opportunity to learn in a really high leverage situation, because then when you get back to next year where you're hoping he's going to be your everyday center fielder, I think the game's going to be a lot slower in April of 2024.
I don't know. If I could tell him one thing, it's that the walls are not padded under the ivy at Wrigley. There's no padding there, Pete. I need you to understand that.
Yeah, please don't dive headfirst into it. I'm sure they're telling him that right now. Again, like if you look at the thread and see some of the catches he's made, like some of them you could tell he felt it. He felt it.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you can't do that with a brick wall, a literal brick wall, and that's what's behind that ivy. We are going to wrap with a minor league update and kind of notable promotions and all that jazz. But a couple notes on the Braves, who are still the best team in baseball. One good note, one not so good note. Let's get the bad news out of the way. Kyle Wright came back. That's good news that Kyle Wright is back.
Yeah.
The bad news is that Kyle Wright, in return from injury, which has held him out the entire year, he labored through a couple innings in Philly on Monday night, and he really did not look good. And if you want to go back, if you're a dork like me and you want to rewatch that Kyle Wright start, turn on the Braves telecast, Bally Sports South. John Smoltz was the analyst with Brandon Gaudin, and Smoltz walking through why Kyle Wright was struggling was very, very indicative of like what could be to come for Wright. And that was yanking a lot of sliders. You have everything starting to flatten out, and it's because he was flying open way too soon. He dove into the mechanics of it. Kyle Wright, unfortunately, looked like a guy that has not been healthy all year, which is true, but also looked like a guy that, is still trying to get his feet under him pitching in a Major League Baseball game, and running that guy out to start games as you get closer to playoff time. And if they do run him out to start a game in the NLDS, it's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting is it was a shoulder issue. And I think the shoulder stuff is like, it's weirder. It's harder to find the release point again. And even on like a very basic level, when I got my shoulder like taken care of, trying to even just play catch was so weird after being shut down for months and like trying to find that release point again, because your shoulder feels different. And I can't imagine as a major league pitcher what that would feel like as you're trying to throw again and trying to get totally back into the swing of things. And yeah, he threw some rehab starts, but it's a different beast. I think the other thing that was kind of indicative of, maybe either lack of confidence in cutting loose or just lack of confidence in his fastball overall is, if I'm not mistaken, he threw 24 curveballs in that start, as opposed to 17 sinkers, 8 sliders, 7 four-seamers, and 6 changeups. Like, yeah, if you combine the four-seamer and the sinker, you have an even 24 with the curveball. But that's pretty surprising, like to see him throwing the curveball as much as the fastball. I don't think he got a single whiff. So, or at least a whiff in the zone. So it's one of those things where it's a little concerning. I want to give him like a 1-start buffer because he did look really good in Worcester, where he, I know that's a AAA rehab, but he punched out like 7 in 3 innings or 3 2/3, whatever it was. And it is weird kind of coming back from his shoulder, but you got to have a relatively short leash here in terms of get 2 more shots to see Kyle Wright before the season's over. I think you have to put him out there to see what you've got. And if it doesn't look much better, the Braves have to figure something out in terms of what their playoff rotation is going to look like. And, whether Kyle Wright's even on that roster, because, if Kyle Wright's not starting for you, I don't know if that's a guy you even really want to use an active roster spot in the playoffs with, because, you'd rather have a reliever. You'd rather have someone that can kind of come in and get outs. And, you could run with a 3-man rotation of Max Fried, Strider, Morton, and then even Elder if you want to have another starter there. I think surprisingly, Kyle Wright could end up being the odd man out if it doesn't get better. But again, I don't want to overreact to one start, but to your point, as you could see from what you saw and also Smoltz, it wasn't great mechanically, and that sometimes takes a little while to get back.
Yes, it takes a long while to get back, and it might be something that like he needs an off season to get back. It's really hard to come back with this short amount of time. And we haven't spoken to Walker Buehler yet. We'll talk to him on Monday, but that could have been a concern that he had. It's like, hey, I just don't feel perfect mechanically, and I feel like I may do the Dodgers in. And he's been very open about talking about that with us. Like he said, I don't want to come back just because I can. I want to come back and be a benefit. So maybe there was an inkling in his mind where he said, I might not be the best option right now. Kyle Hurt might be a better option than me. I disagree with that. Like, I think a lot of people would disagree with that, but Kyle Wright, man, like Elder, I know Elder has taken a step back after the All-Star break. He may be a better option than Kyle Wright. This is not your 21-game winner right now. Next year, can he return to that form? Absolutely. Yeah. But would you rather have 3 innings of Kyle Wright at 93 with subdued breaking stuff? Or would you rather have another guy throwing 99 out of your bullpen? I think I'm probably taking the latter. The whiff point, 33 swings yesterday, 3 whiffs, 2 of which came on the 4-seam fastball.
Yeah.
1 came on the breaking stuff.
Yeah. And that's not going to play. And, Walker was talking about how when his pitches were kind of too big, like the breaking ball was too big. And you'll see maybe the break numbers look okay, but if it's starting too early and you're not getting over it and it's a slower curveball, it's just not going to play the same way. And I think that's kind of what was happening with Wright. My concern, and what I think probably played a part in the Walker situation too, is, when Walker came on and was talking about his, how he felt after that first rehab start. He's like, it felt good, but I'm sore, and I'm imagining you're putting a guy now that is just getting his feet back under him. And this applies to both Walker and Kyle Wright. And now not only high leverage, adrenaline driven situations, your body's going to push itself outside its comfort zone. So now you're coming off of an injury and the adrenaline's kicking in, and now you're pushing your body again. So you got to look at a 27-year-old, going to be 28-year-old Kyle Wright and say, also, in the long term, if he's not looking like himself, do I want to push him to this degree? And I think it's the same thing with Walker Buehler. Guys, as fiery of a competitor as you're going to find, he's not holding himself back at all in the playoffs. And that probably was a part of the decision too. Like the Dodgers know that the second you put Walker Buehler on the fucking mound, he's going to throw all out and he's going to do everything to get his team to win.
Yeah.
And that's scary. It's awesome, but it's scary.
So I can make the football count, but I'm going to actually go a more fucked up route. You and I have both been in car accidents in the last year. And with the adrenaline pumping after a car accident, you feel like the best your body has felt in a while. Like I got T-boned and I get out of the car. Thankfully I was okay. Like I did have whiplash. Like I felt it the next day, but in that moment, the adrenaline spike, I got out of the car and I was like, I'm loose. Like I feel really good right now.
Yeah, you feel like you can like run over the car and like just run. Yeah, you're buzzing. Like you're adrenaline buzzing. Did you watch The Boys?
No, that's that hero show on Prime.
Yeah. It's like Compound V. It's like the thing that they like inject themselves with, and it gets them their like superhero powers on a different level. Like adrenaline, people really underestimate. Like it is crazy. So when you're on the big stage, you're trying to manage that adrenaline, and you're already kind of with wacky mechanics in a Kyle Wright. I think we're going to ultimately see them go another route. And again, unless he really turns the tides in the next couple starts. But it's interesting because now we talk about the Braves. They have nothing to worry about the rest of this regular season. So you might as well wheel Kyle Wright out there a couple more times, see what you got. But let's assume Kyle Wright can't throw. Like they just don't want to use him.
Yeah,
you really only need 3 guys in a playoff rotation and then a 4th guy to spot in there, depending on the situation. It's a good playoff rotation. Like, don't get me wrong. Max Fried, Spencer Strider, and then Charlie Morton, who's just Mr. Consistency on that big
Charlie
stage.
Morton has a mid-3s ERA. Like you forget that he always has a 3.4, but he's got a 3.4.
Pretty good. It's pretty damn good.
He's throwing 97. He's 55 years old. He's spinning the shit out of this curveball.
That's a guy whose heart rate does not change, on the big stage. And So I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, that's a really fun rotation. But I have one question for you, because I'm honestly not that worried about Morton. I think he's gonna be fine, but fine. He's gonna be a fine postseason 3, and that's good. That's all you can ask for. I think the big X factor here is Spencer Strider, because Fried's gonna be that dude. I'm not worried about Fried.
Yeah.
So Strider, when he's on, could pitch a no-hitter in the World Series. When he's off, he could get teed off and give up 6 earned runs within 2 innings. And I think that's like this Braves team. I just went on like ESPN Las Vegas, the radio, and they're like, how can this Braves team lose? And you look at the way it's constructed, it's like, it's really hard. Baseball's baseball, though. Anybody can lose in any given series, especially in the playoffs. I was floored when the Phillies beat the Braves last year. But I think the most obvious vulnerability is also one of their most obvious strengths, which is so wild. Like Spencer Strider could be the guy that wins them the World Series, but he could also be the guy that gets them bounced. Because picture this: you win game 1 with Max Fried. Strider gets the ball game 2 and gets blown up, let's say, and has another one of those tough outings. Now Morton versus whoever they're facing game 3, you might not have the pitching advantage in game 3. It might be a wash. And all of a sudden, that's a tide-turning game where it's an even playing field. And you got to lean on the offense, which is insane. We'll talk about it in a second. But that vast advantage that they have can quickly go away if Strider looks like the guy that gets blown up and not the guy that strikes out 15 and doesn't give up any runs.
Strider has 1 postseason start under his belt. It came in last year's NLDS against the Phillies. Do you know how that went?
Well, he was coming off an injury. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But it didn't go great, right?
2 1/3, 3 hits, 5 earned. He walked 2. He struck out 4.
Yeah, he was coming off of that oblique
out of the third. Yeah, an oblique thing, but like, I don't know, that doesn't feel good. And the thing is, like, there are 5 or 6 starts this year that kind of look like that and have honestly looked worse than that. It's a quicker leash. It's a shorter leash in the postseason, but man, like if he gets off to a rough start through 2 1/3 and they pull the plug on it, is Elder a long man? Like, I don't know. Yeah, yes, but like, I don't know if he's a good one.
No, I mean, you're in trouble at that point, you know, and that's the one vulnerability. And that also speaks to how good the Braves are, that their vulnerability is a guy that, you take out
15 per 9 or 14 per 9.
You take 1 or 2 blow up starts away, and he's probably right in this Cy Young conversation. And that's the thing. So like, I think he can be what wins them the World Series. And I think he's the X factor that could end up costing them. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that all unfolds. But the offense can always bail them out, though. And that's the beautiful thing about this ball club.
Yes. And Matt Olson is the first to 50 with a multi-homer game 2 in the doubleheader in Philly on Monday. Olson to 50. This guy is still the most slept on power bat in baseball because he strikes out a lot, but he walks a lot. He plays great defense at first base. And this dude is the most prolific power bat in baseball at this point. He's got 50 nukes. He's got 120 driven in right now. This guy, man, you put him in the middle of this order. I remember saying it, and I know Freddie Freeman's going to have 60 doubles. I know Freddie Freeman might get more MVP votes than Matt Olson, but for the length of the deal, for the price, and for the age, Olson is 4 years younger than Freddie Freeman. Olson might have been the better option for the Atlanta Braves. I think Olson's 29 and Freeman is 30.
About to be 34. I think he's about to be 34, right? Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's if you are going to let a Hall of Famer go and Freddie Freeman, this is the best possible scenario where you can get a guy who is really hitting his peak now at 29 on a really affordable deal. What stands out to me is how he just keeps getting better. And you see what he's done against non-fastballs this year. Like, this guy's always pulverized heaters, and he did that last year. But this year, against breaking balls, slugging 611. Last year against breaking balls, he was slugging 398. This year against off-speed, which is change-ups, splitters, whatever it may be, slugging 659. Last year was slugging 582, which was also still good. The real standout is how he's hitting breaking balls. And that's what's been so amazing. And it's been so good that you have some conspiracy theorists on Twitter saying that the Braves are cheating, whatever it is. That's how good Matt Olson has been and several of his teammates. 25 home runs against fastballs, 17 home runs against breaking balls, 8 home runs against changeups. Like that's just insane stuff. And what stands out the most to me is this guy just gets his swing off, man. Like he's got it down and he gets his A swing off as frequently as possible. And that's how you hit 50 home runs. And he's going to hit more than that. And it's amazing. Like you look at how many guys have hit 55 home runs in the last 20, 30 years. It's a short list. And it's a list of juicers and Hall of Famers and guys who could kind of be both. And that's what makes it so amazing. It's been a real, almost one of the more quiet 50 home run campaigns, I feel like, in a while.
I think so. There are guys in the NBA that put up quiet 30-point games. I think this is, one of those seasons where like he's slowly but surely made his way to 50. And Ohtani, it's a loud 50.
Mm-hmm.
He's 44 right now. It's been a really loud 44. Judge, it was a loud 62 last year. But even if Judge fell shy of Maris by 10, it was going to be a loud 52. I think Pete Alonso does it in a loud way too. And some of it could be market. Some of it could be, these guys are the true star on their team. People are more interested in Acuna when they're watching the Braves. And it just happens that Matt Olson has 50 homers. I don't know, man. Like there's just something about him that still somehow screams underrated to me when he's gotten 1,000 OPS and he's got 50 pumps. Over the course of his career, he's 29 years old. He has played parts of 8 big league seasons. This guy is averaging 42 homers and 111 ribbies on a per 162 basis. Can you stretch it to say that he may be on a nascent Hall of Fame track?
And that's an interesting question because he did get a slightly later-ish start, I guess, to the monster power numbers than some.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like he still was putting up decent home run numbers and at 23 years old. So what, he's got 226 homers right now.
Not decent, dude. This guy had a 1003 OPS when he was
through that 59.
Old.
Yeah, that was crazy.
59 games, he had
home runs and 59.
Homers.
Holy shit.
Yes.
I didn't even know I don't even remember that he did that.
This cat finished 4th in Rookie of the Year voting in 59 games.
24 homers in 59 games is asinine in Oakland. That is crazy. So, yeah, he gets that hot start, but then 29 homers in 162 games that next year. It was fine, but not great. And then, starts to build up from there. I mean, he's going to finish his age 29 season with 230 home runs, let's say. It's possible. This is a guy that I think could age really well too, but he's going to have like 4 more monster, like 40+ home run seasons, which why can't he?
Tank. He hit 39 in Oakland in 2020.
Yeah. Why can't he? This is, and then the defense helps. I mean, multiple Gold Gloves. He's going to accumulate tons of WAR. He's already a 28 WAR guy. If you look at Baseball Reference WAR, I don't know if Fangraphs will probably be even more friendly to him in that regard. I mean, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy at all. It's really fun. It's really it's one of those guys that I just think is easy to root for, just the way he plays the game, kind of how underrated he is. And the A's, you look at what the Braves have right now in Matt Olson and Sean Murphy, and both locked up, under control for cheap. It's insane that the Braves were able to do that. And I was saying like John Fisher, the Oakland A's owner, that guy legitimately should get a ring from the Braves if they win it this year. But again, as I mentioned on Twitter, he would probably pawn that ring. But like I know the Braves would be good regardless, but it is absolutely absurd that they were able to get both Matt Olson and Sean Murphy. And you look at some of the pieces that they gave up, they're not losing sleep about really any of them.
So you and I went to Atlanta last year, and we were at Braves Phillies on a replica ring giveaway.
Yeah.
And I still have it here. I think John Fisher should get one of these where it's
plastic
diamonds.
He'd still sell that.
How much do you think I could get for this?
You'd be surprised. Sometimes those ballpark giveaways, you get some. I don't even know what I did with mine.
It looks gas. I love it.
It does look good. It does look good.
I feel great about it. All right, let's wrap with a minor league report here and a couple of promotions. Samuel Basayo to Double-A, Jackson Jobe to Double-A. And then whichever ones kind of come to your mind. But let's start with the Orioles catching prospect, Basayo, because this is on the heels of Jackson Holliday getting promoted to Triple-A last week. And Holliday going to Triple is utterly insane. But this is a 19-year-old catcher in Samuel Basayo that was making mincemeat of high A in Aberdeen. And Basayo is a guy that many people had no idea who he was coming into this year. And now he's a top 50 prospect in baseball at year's end.
I mean, to sign as an international free agent in 2021, make your pro debut at 16 at the DSL, and to already be in AA, it is absolutely insane. And this guy, I mean, it's a testament to the scouting that Oakland, or excuse me, that Baltimore is able to do here, and also just the development side of things as well. This is another dude in this system that's already an unbelievable system that is blossoming into a top 50 prospect in the game. And we're highlighting him because he turned 19 just after his promotion to high A. And in 27 games in high A, he's probably not going to stick at catcher, by the way, which is fine because the bat is so like, this guy could be Matt Olson-esque, which is the funny part. Like, he could be a Matt Olson type bat. I don't know if he'll be as good defensively, of course, but like, that's how much power this dude has. 27 games in high A as an 18/19-year-old. He slashed 333, 443, 688 with 8 homers. He walked as much as he struck out and a 195 WRC plus. This dude is turning into one of the best bats, I think, probably arguably the best teenage bat in all of minor league baseball. And of course, he's in Baltimore. They have such an embarrassment of riches. And I'm really excited. Double A is going to be a test for him, but I'm really excited to see what he's going to do there for a little taste and start the year next year in Double A. This is a guy that is, when it comes to some of the top prospects in this system, he's in the untouchable territory for me.
Yeah, I think so. And we were having this conversation on the call up where, Basayo, like, he doesn't need to play catcher because you have that Rutschman guy, and he can also become a top 15 type prospect as a first baseman. Like, that's how good the bat is. When you think best overall teenage prospect, I think you immediately settle on Jackson Chourio with the Brewers. And then I think Ethan Salas of the Padres is right there. But when you look at teenage bat, I mean, in terms of power bats right now, the 2 sexiest names are probably Basayo and Lazaro Montes in Seattle. Montes is getting this crazy helium right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'll still take Chourio over both of them, like, without a
sure.
doubt. But in terms of power bats, Basayo and Montes, if you want to get in on the ground floor.
And then my king, Xavier Isaac in Tampa Bay. That's my king.
He's 19 still?
Yeah, he's 19 still. That guy's unbelievable. And that's a guy I know I've been bugging you about for a while. But yeah, I mean, that's a guy I wanted to highlight really quickly just because it's just so cool what they're building over there. And then real quick before I forget, Wyatt Langford, I just want to talk about him because we were talking about how he could have easily been the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Yeah. And, I'm not making much of Dylan Cruz's slow start in Double A. But on the flip side, I am going to make a lot of what Wyatt Langford is doing across all 3 levels so far, which is insane. This guy falls, quote unquote, to the Rangers. And again, what we talked about, I think Max Clark's going to be a great player, but it's one of those where I don't know how you pass on this guy. The Rangers being able to get this guy is unbelievable. And I think it's part of the reason why they were okay with trading from the farm a little bit, because they just instantly added a top. I think by the end of this year, he's a top 15 prospect in the game, arguably top 10 with what we're seeing from him, both from a power and speed standpoint. You got 33 games between rookie ball, high A, and Double A now at this point. He's slashing 333, 449, 633. He's walked more than he struck out. And again, like in the 6 games in Double A, has not missed a beat and has been awesome there. He's hitting the living crap out of the ball. He's flying all over the place. He can really motor. He's stealing some bags. The defense is getting better. Langford looks like he might end up being the guy that flies through the minor leagues as quick as anybody. That doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be better than Dylan Cruz, but right now, he looks like he's going to get there quicker with the way his game is progressing and how comfortable he looks against this Double A competition.
So 64 games with Florida this year, hit 373 with a 1282 OPS, 28 doubles, 21 pumps, 57 driven in, 56 walks, 44 punch outs. And then you just ran through the pro numbers too. Here's me saying, I think he's just hot. I don't know if he's that good. I think he might just be hot in 2023, and you sit him for an offseason and he may suck next year. That's me. That's my take. No, yeah, I'm joking. He's amazing, man. Like, look at what he did as a sophomore at Florida last year. This guy had an 1166 OPS and he somehow got better this year when he was the one that was circled 10 billion times on the lineup card. And now at every level in rookie ball, it's like, hey, this guy's too good for rookie ball. In high A, oh, this guy's too good for high A. In Double A, he's too good here. He's going to start next year, I think, in AAA. He could be up by May. We'll see where the openings are in Texas, because Evan Carter looks solid to start his pro career or start his big league career. But man, like if there is an opening, whether it be the DH spot and you can move Adolis, I don't want to move Adolis. Dude, the Texas Rangers are in a really good spot. And adding Langford to this fold is insane.
I don't want to overreact, but 28 game sample here. And you know the data points I love to look at. 28 games, like I need a little bit more, but 123 plate appearances is a fairly large enough size for some of this to normalize, especially with aggressive promotions mixed in there. And I think I'll feel really confident by the end of the year with another, 10 games or so under Langford's belt. 91% zone contact. I mean, that's when you're hitting the ball as hard as he is. 106.5 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocity. You know that.
You're a two-trick pony, man. Those are the only two numbers you know. 17%
chase rate. Those are the three things that are the largest indicators of success. That's scary. That's scary. And then obviously I'll nerd out about the swing mechanics. It plays to all fields. So I'm pumped on Wyatt Langford. I think he can force his way up real quick.
Nerd out on the swing mechanics. Go ahead.
I mean, people were worried about, the front side kind of leaving a little bit early. And that was something that he worked on this year. And now he stays through the ball. And even when it looks like the front side's leaving, he's holding the back hip so well that it's power to all fields. He can be dragging back a little bit and you'll see him crush one the other way, 110. And if you hang one middle in pull side, the way that he's able to be rotationally explosive, he can put it 475 to the pull side. You've pulled up pictures of his lower half because of like that pause. You've pulled up pictures of like him walking in the quads that the team posted. Yeah. And I mean, you can see that strength in his swing. I haven't seen a guy use the ground as well as Wyatt Langford in a while coming out of the draft in terms of being able to generate unbelievable torque and power. And then his hands also work well. So he has this adjustability and this above average hit, and then it's plus power. And then it's unbelievable approach as well. You can call me the three trick pony, but all three of those things are showing in the data. Checks the eye test, checks the data. I'll push this guy forward. I'm stamping him. He's there's no way he busts.
You're a three trick pony, man. Yeah, there's no way he busts. I'm totally with you. But hearing that from you, who is like so against the take like that, is very impressive. Langford, the forearms are massive. You see that just in everyday basis. But yeah, that photo that the AA affiliate, the Frisco Rough Riders, posted of him walking in with his bag, and it's like, hey, he's here. Seeing his legs in like shorts, I was like, holy shit, that's an athlete. That's a big man.
That's how he's able to hold his lower half and stay back on breaking stuff. Like it's scary what he's already able to do.
Yeah. Last one I want to open the floor for you is Jackson Jobe, the Tigers right-handed pitching prospect. And Jobe was the number 3 overall pick in 21 or 22?
21.
2021. Jobe is a guest on the call up recently, and Jackson Jobe is on a crazy stretch right now, and he looks like a future frontline guy.
Yeah. Well, first of all, check out that interview, because also if you go to the call up YouTube, you can see the live breakdown we did where I pulled some video from his recent starts, and he broke down kind of his thought process and how he attacks hitters. And after that, I'm like, okay, we already knew this stuff was good. And again, I'll hit the same data points that I look at pitching prospects as well. He checks all the data points I look at there. And I'd say it's probably more of a 3 or 4 trick pony when it comes to the pitching side of things. That's 4 classic barometers that I'm looking at. And he checks all of those. He's a data darling pitching prospect. But then once I talk to him in the interview portion and then that live breakdown, I'm like, oh, this kid's going to figure it out. And it's been unbelievable what he's been able to do. And I'm glad he's getting the bump up to AA, because he got a late start this year in that Tiger system. You rarely see a guy pick number 3 overall out of high school as a right-handed arm. He was a guy that didn't pick up pitching really till later. Top 35 prospect for us will be probably a top 25 in our end of season update. And a back issue kind of delayed his start to the year. They were super cautious, so he got to throw a lot of bullpens and just kind of work on things and ease his way in. And he was out longer than he probably needed to be. So his arm's super fresh, and you're seeing that now. And he was able to work on some things. He added this changeup that is disgusting. He talked about that kind of split grip that he's been working on. That's been a lights out pitch for him. you probably already, if you've heard one thing about Jackson Jobe, the name association is probably slider because of how nasty the slider is. That's where he kind of, made a name for himself as a prospect, even though he picked up pitching, towards the end of his high school career. And then he added this cutter, which just gives him another wrinkle as well that he throws in the low 90s. And now he's got 4 different ways that he can attack you. He has a ton of confidence in all 4, and he's super smart in the way that he attacks hitters. I'm like, this guy's going to be able to change his looks each time through the lineup, similarly to how we were talking about Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And funny enough, they're kind of similar in terms of the arsenal and the ability to pound the strike zone and the confidence in their stuff. Sits 96.5, 97 miles an hour. And what stands out the most to me, his last 4 starts in high A, Jack, 28 strikeouts, 0 walks. Yep. What else do you want to see from a power right-handed arm at 21 years old? Then 28 strikeouts, 0 walks, and a 53% ground ball rate. So when they are making contact, it's on the ground. He doesn't give out any free passes, and he strikes out everybody. I mean, sign me the hell up.
Just overall in high A, 8 starts, 40 innings. That's 5 innings per start, 54 punch-outs, and 3 walks.
The fuck?
What? That, just for reference, 12.5 Ks per 9, 0.7 walks per 9.
And that's while adding 2 new pitches to his arsenal.
So this guy is a debut candidate after the All-Star break next year, I think. He missed a lot of time with injury. 21 years old, you think, okay, high school draftee in 21, this guy still got time. I don't think he needs that much time.
It's interesting. I remember, I forgot the comp that was thrown out there, but I saw a write-up that was like, this is the most advanced high school pitching prospect that we've seen since blank. And it was a really funny name. But in a good player, but it was just like, oh, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
And we didn't quite see that last year because he was trying to find himself. And I think he was dealing with some of that lower back issue and whatever it may have been. And he didn't look like that super polished guy. And I'm like, yeah, that's really interesting. But this guy played multiple sports. He played shortstop and he's just so athletic on the mound. And now you're just seeing it. And you're seeing some of the mechanical adjustments he's made to work downhill. He talks about all of that on the call up and you should go check that out. But I would argue that, aside from a healthy Andrew Painter and Paul Skeens, like, I think Jobe is right there. I really do. Like, how many pitching prospects are you taking over Jackson Jobe? Because you have the safety net of this guy just found a changeup and he's throwing it for a strike 74% of the time, which is absolutely insane. And it's nasty. He's getting a 38% whiff rate on it.
It was pipeline in the draft write-up. Dylan Bundy.
That's who it was. Yeah. Okay. I was like, okay, that's a funny one, but that's a great advanced polished.
He was a great prospect.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, that defined career. But I who are you taking over Jackson Jobe as a pitching prospect? Like, for those that play Dynasty or whatever, like, go pick him up before it's too late.
Yeah.
Because I know health is a concern with every pitcher in the world, but this is a guy that, again, it was like low back, like inflammation, and they were so careful with him. And his arm is as fresh as ever. So knock on wood, you can't control those kinds of things. But I don't know who I'd take over him. I'm not taking Mizorowski over him.
No, Skeens, Painter. I'm taking those 2 over Jobe, I think.
Fair.
Horton?
I think it's real close. That's
Tiedemann?
where I think he's closed the gap on Horton. Man, Tiedemann makes me too nervous. I'd take Jobe. Yeah. So Tigers fans have a lot to be excited about.
How about Sixto Sanchez? Last thing on Sixto Sanchez.
Yeah, we'll call it a wrap on this. By the time people are listening to this, Sixto Sanchez will have thrown in an organized baseball game for the first time since Just Baseball has been conceived. Like, that's crazy. This is the first time. See, even before he was throwing, before we were Project the Plate, he was throwing probably, I mean, this was before we were doing anything.
It was April of 2021 where like episode 1 of the Project the Plate podcast came out.
And he threw his last organized game in spring training, March of 2021, I believe.
So a month before Project the Plate, which was the, feeder to Just Baseball existed.
Yes. Because I realized that people would read it as Project the Plate. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. So,
I don't think I knew about it at the time. That when I watched Sixto Sanchez in the 2020 postseason, I don't think I knew what you guys were doing.
I don't think we knew what we were doing. So that puts it in perspective. So Sixto, by the way, if people are wondering why, shoulder issues, had a shoulder surgery. I can pretty much confirm through multiple sources, and I know Craig Mish has confirmed this too. Sixto was not keen on grinding the required amount to get his arm back.
Fan work is so overrated anyways. I'm
Yeah,
kind
I
of
agree.
with Sixto.
Yeah. Why work hard to get yourself back? And just would try to throw again, and then his arm would flare up, and then he had another shoulder procedure, and then he'd try to throw again, and then his arm would flare up, and he just was very frustrated and upset, and then wouldn't do the things that he needed to do to get right. And I think he saw the twilight potentially of his career at this point. You know, it was like, okay, now I really got to work hard to get back. And, you know, props to him. He's worked hard to get back, reportedly up to 94 last time he was on the mound. And, you know, I'm interested to see how this looks from him in Double A in this rehab start. But I didn't think we'd see him on the mound again. I'll be honest.
He was so gross for that moment in 2020, and he is the fever dream baseball player. In 2020, 39 innings. He had a 3.46 ERA. His postseason, 5 shutout innings against the Cubs, and then 3 innings, a 4-run ball against the Braves. But that Cubs outing, I remember just watching Sixto throw against the Cubs at Wrigley, and everybody was masked up, and no one was allowed in there. I was just like, holy shit.
It just added to the allure too. It's like, if nobody saw him throw in the playoffs, did it really happen? And it's like, no, I don't know. No one really saw him throw other than on TV.
He was Sid Finch.
You could have convinced me that he was a hologram, but he's back and he's not going to pitch this year. I want to make that clear. He's not pitching for the Marlins this year. Yeah. But man, I mean, if this guy can get back and be anything at all for them, that's a great ending to what I thought would be a much worse story. But I'm not holding my breath on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, but he's going to be a blue wahoo. Hey, shout out to Fort Wayne Tin Caps in the Midwest League playoffs. Go get him, baby. I was ready to drive to Fort Wayne if Dylan Lesko was pitching. Lesko is not pitching. I will not be driving to Fort Wayne, but I will be watching Fort Wayne on TV. So. Oh, yeah. Everything you need is in the episode description. Get your Just Baseball merch. Go listen to the other shows. Great couple interviews coming up on the call up, and a great couple interviews last week and the week before. Davis Schneider, if you haven't listened to that interview, it is excellent. Go listen to the new face of the Toronto Blue Jays and a $200 million extension candidate this offseason, I think, in Davis Schneider.
They got to throw that at him now.
You have to throw it at him
before it's too late. He's on pace for 15 WAR. They got to do it now.
He's going to sign a 25-year, $873 million deal.
Dude signed for $50,000 out of high school. I think he's already made more in the 2 month and a half he's been up there than he did in his entire professional baseball career.
Give him a pre-arb extension right now, for the love of God.
Get my boy the bag. All he does is just hang with his dog. He talks about it. Just dog needs to eat too. Get him some fancy food.
Get him some of that true, like, what's it called? The direct, like, farm to table dog food, like the real salmon shit. Yeah. Get his dog some salmon.
I'd imagine that's the first thing he buys.
I'm sure. And then maybe like a used Volkswagen Jetta.
Seems like a simple guy like that.
We will talk to you tomorrow.